Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah, before we invite the Sayyid Abbas to the member, we just want to remind you, first of all, thank you for coming. We would like to remind you about this Saturday. Inshallah, we have the annual fundraising at 6 o'clock. For those of you who didn't buy the tickets, and never too late, you can go to the email, they send you the link. So please go ahead, buy the tickets and help the center to buy the majority of the shares of this building. So inshallah, in a couple of years, we're gonna be the majority owner. Without any further ado, would like to welcome Sayyid Abbas to the member. Wa salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. When you look at current events and what's going on, especially in Syria, Sham, there has been a lot of videos, a lot of interest in the signs of the end of times, especially about the rise of the Sufyani, Khuruju Sufyani. How are we supposed to deal with such current events? Are we supposed to correlate them with the narrations and try to understand, what this is not? Are we allowed to say, for example, this instance in this narration is this person, that, for example, narration is for this other person? So one of the mistakes that I see sometimes happening, especially now because many people are interested, is that people try to look at those narrations about the end of times and they try to put names. Say, this person's him, that person's the other person. The problem with this is that if the evidence isn't clear enough and you're not absolutely certain, time passes and nothing happens. And then people's faith becomes weak. So you said it's going to happen, the dhuhr is going to happen tomorrow, or this time, or month of Rajab, or whatever. And it didn't, or Shahr Ramadan this year. We should be so hopeful in the advent of the Imam of the age that it happens tonight, that you pray that right now, without any delay, we want Imam Zaman to come back, yes. But also, it does not mean that you should look at these narrations in a way and you try to squeeze them into the current events. And you try to twist everything and turn them and say, I found one narration and all the other 10 are saying something else. I found one narration, it relates. So what about the other 10 narrations? So we have to, on the other hand, too, be careful not to not analyze the narrations. The narrations, the hadith of the Prophet and his family are there for a purpose, and that is to instruct us so that we can see what to do during the end of times. So tonight's discussion is about what is our most important responsibility during the end of times. Before this, I'm going to share a little bit about the Sufyani because some are very interested in it. So who is this person? And because of this very fast change that's been happening in Syria, many are intrigued about the debate of the Sufyani. First of all, when you look at sources, the sources that you should use in hadith, we have Holy Quran. The Sufyani is not in the Holy Quran. It is in the hadith. It is in the narrations. How many narrations? I looked at one book is Kamaluddin, وَتَمَامُ النِّعْمَةِ. This is a book from Sheikh Saduq, one of the good works that if a person wants to analyze Mahdawiyat, Imam Mahdi, and the end of times, you can refer to this book, Kamaluddin wa Tamamu Ni'mah. There's a section in this book, and this book has been translated in English. There's a section, 18 narrations about the Sufyani, 18 hadith in this book. Some of the narrations, if you want to divide it, first of all, the important thing to give you a nice summary is that there are 5 major signs before the advent of Imam Mahdi Ajallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. 5 major signs. One of them, and these major signs are called al-mahtum. Mahtum in Arabic means for certain. Some are mawquf, they're not for certain. They can happen or not. But these are mahtum. Why is it mahtum? Because in the narrations you read and you look, and it says, for example, that the dhuhur will not happen until these 5 signs. The advent will not happen until these 5 signs. Actually, in one of the narrations, they asks the Imam, and he says that, is it possible, I think Zurara asks, Imam Bagha, I believe, and he says that, is it possible that the Sufyani does not come out? The Sufyani is the enemy of the Imam of the age. Is it possible that the Sufyani does not, come out and try to, and kill and murder? And the narration, the hadith says that no, that Sufyani has to happen. He has to occur. So it is one of the 5 major signs. Of the 5 major signs, how many do we know? One is the heavenly cry. There will be a cry, a scream. That is one. One is khurujul Yamani. The Yamani from Yemen will revolt from Yemen. 3, we have the murder of the pure soul. An-nafsu zakiyah will be murdered. 4th, we have khafsul bayda, meaning the sinking of a land in Arabia that actually is the Sufyani's army. He will sink in that land. And the 5th is the Sufyani. Sufyani, who is from the family members of Abu Sufyan. Who's Abu Sufyan? The grandfather of Yazid, father of Muawiyah. What else do we know about the Sufyani? In the traditions we have, so him coming out is of the certain size. The descriptions can be accurate or not be accurate, the descriptions. But the khuruj itself, in general, fil ijma, is correct. It's going to happen. But now the descriptions say this. He is broad-shouldered. His face is full of acne. He has one eye. People are frightened upon seeing him. In some of the tradition, it says he will be ordering at that time, the Shia will be ordered to be killed. And whoever kills a Shia, follower of Ali Muhammad, will be given 1,000 dirhams. 1,000 dirhams. Some of the traditions say at that time, escape and go to Medina, go to Mecca. Some of the traditions. That's the place to escape. We have his name, in the tradition, Uthman ibn Anbasa, Harb ibn Anbasa. Sunnis also have narrations, Harb ibn Anbasa, Muawiyah ibn Utbah, for example. We said that he is for sure going to arise. The other tradition, some of them say from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, that it's going to be in the month of Rajab. This will happen in the month of Rajab. There's another tradition from Imam Bagha alayhi salam that Sufyani and the Yamani and the Khurasani all come in the same year. All in the same year. Khurasani is good, the Yamani is good, Sufyani is bad. Make sure you don't mix it up at the end of times, inshallah. And they occur in the same year, same month, and the same day. That khuruj. So now, when I look at some of these narrations, I'm going to read in detail from the book of Kamal ad-Din. These are interesting narrations. And you can look it up yourself, but these are some of them that I've chosen. The tradition from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, Kamal ad-Din. The rising of the Sufyani is an inevitable matter. He will rise in the month of Rajab. It will take, since his rising until his end, 15 months. He will fight for 6 months. So Syria will be a place of fighting. He will fight for 6 months. When he conquers, not necessarily Syria. Sham is the Levant, that area around Syria. When he conquers the 5 districts, he will rule for 9 months, no more, no less. A lot of the traditions say for 9 months, this time period. No more, no less. He will rule for 9 months. After those 9 months, he takes his army and he goes to Medina. Hadith number 2. From Abu Abdullah as-Sadiq alayhi salam. Let's recite salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Some things are inevitable and others are not, the Imam says. In tradition, Kamaluddin, hadith number 2. From among the inevitable things is the rising of Sufyani and Rajab. Now, the hadith gets more interesting. Those that are not listening, try to pay attention. They get a little bit more interesting. Hadith number, let's skip these. 4. Hadith number 4. From Zurara ibn A'yun and Abdul Malik ibn A'yun. These are, Zurara is one of the famous narrators. From Imam Baqir alayhi salam. Was mentioned, he says that once I saw Imam Baqir. When Imam Mahdi, I'm changing the word, was mentioned in front of him, before him. I said to him, I hope that Imam Mahdi appears sooner without being preceded by the rising of a Sufyani. So Zurara had so much knowledge of the hadith that he knew that Sufyani was mahtum, was for sure going to rise. So he says, I wish that Imam Mahdi would come first. First Imam Mahdi, then Sufyan. Then Imam Baqir alayhi salam says, by Allah, that will not be. It is an inevitable thing. So one of the great signs, if you want to see when the Imam will come, one of these 5 signs is Sufyani. The khuruj of Sufyani, for sure he'll come. Let's look at other narrations. Again, narration number 6, same thing. Some are pending, some are inevitable. The Sufyan is inevitable. Rajab, hadith number 7 talks about Rajab. Continuing, this hadith, which is, I saw this online and social media, and this got a lot of attention. إذا استولى السفياني على الكور الخمس فعدوا له 9 أشهر. When Sufyani conquers 5 districts, then you count to him 9 months. Remember, because we said he goes to Medina, and then inshallah there will be the Dhuhr. So what are these 5 districts? It's interesting. وَالزَّعَمَ Hisham, and if I say Al-Kawr, those 5 districts, he claimed that these 5, Damashq, Palestine, Wal-Urdun, Jordan, Wal-Homs, Wal-Halab, and Halab, which is known as Adlib. Adlib, Homs, Jordan, Palestine, Damashq. When Sufyani conquers these 5, count, and there'll be 9 months of rule of the Sufyani. So this is, one of those interesting narrations that some were using that to pay attention here. And why? Because it is from authentic book. It's from Kamaluddin Tamam wa Ni'ma. It's from the book of Sheikh As-Saduq, which has sanad. It is not one of those narrations that does not have sanad. But regardless, this is for us to study. Let me see. I think there's another narration here that I wanted to share. Yes, the other narration, number 14, mentions that the Imam will come from the east, but before that, a Sufyani will rise in Sham. We said the Levant. It's not only Syria, but the Levant area. Sufyani will rule for 9 months only. Again, how many traditions says 9 months? 9 months. All the people of Sham will submit to him except a few believers who will still keep to the truth and whom Allah preserves from following him. He will move towards Medina with a great army. So see, after that 9 months, he goes to Medina. What happens? Before reaching or in that area, he gets swallowed by the land. That is what it says. So therefore, these are just interesting narrations that we have. In this last hadith number 18, some of the description. As-Sufyani is red, blonde, and blue, the narration has. Red, blonde, and blue. So the Arabic is As-Sufyani Ahmar, Ashghar, Azraq. So he has never worshipped Allah, if the translation's right. He has never worshipped Allah at all. He never worshipped Allah. He has seen neither Mecca or Medina. He never went to Mecca, never went to Medina. He says, "Oh, by God, I take revenge even if I go to hell. Oh my God, I take revenge even if I go to hell." So therefore, this is, some of the narrations just for us to have more information. Again, I don't do tatbiq or correlate because I don't see the evidence as necessarily being clear that this is that person or that is that person. I don't have an opinion on this matter. But it's important that we know that one of the signs, at least of Mahtum, certain signs before the Imam rises is As-Sufyani. This is as much, ijmalan that I prepared. Now, our question tonight in the discussion that we have is that what is our duty? What is our main duty? And many people today, because what is going on throughout the Middle East, they say, what can I do? What is our duty? What is our main responsibility? And that is the title of tonight's lecture. What is the main responsibility of us? This is the topic. When you look throughout, the Holy Quran, and you look throughout the narrations, you see that the end of times is a difficult times. We've been taught that you have to protect yourself during the end of times, Akhir Zaman. One, our Imam is, in occultation. The Imam cannot be seen. He is benefiting us, but he cannot be seen. Therefore, we are much more susceptible to being influenced from outside, from being, misguided. We have been taught that, for example, when you walk during the end of times, that as if you see a person that walks with thorns and bushes, how do you walk? Did you ever go through a path that has, sharp or thorns or bushes in the trees? How do you walk? You walk like this, right? You're careful of yourself. You don't go this way, to the left, to the right. You're careful. You follow the path in a very ihtiyati, precautionary way. End of times, it should be that way. You should be very careful of yourself. Because as said, a person will go with iman, with faith, outside of his house, and will come back as a disbeliever at the end of times, as a disbeliever. Mentioned that during the end of times, before one bala ends, one calamity ends, another one starts. With the time of calamities. We said that in the narrations, I shared this, Thursday nights, that there are narrations that there'll be so much dhulm, oppression, that the people of Akhir al-Zaman make dua every day and night. They pray. What is their prayer? They pray, Allah, give me death. Allah, take my life away. Imagine how bad must the violence or dhulm, oppression be, that the prayer of the believer, the prayer of people is that give me death. I don't want to see this anymore. I don't want to be in this world anymore. This is the end of times. And again, I'm not saying that this is the end of times, but it's important for us to always prepare for the end of times. We have to be prepared, right? We have to be preparing for the Imam of the age. We see that in the end of times are instructed that having iman and faith is like holding, hot coal or hot, something very hot. How difficult it is, if I put a hot coal in your hand right now, how difficult would it be for you to hold on to that? Very difficult. During the end of times to hold on to your iman, hold on to your faith. So therefore, we ask ourselves this question, and many times, one of the problems that most people who fail during the end of their life is that they become arrogant. They become, in a way, very comfortable with their iman. They say, no, I'm Muslim. I was born Muslim. I've been Muslim. Nothing is going to challenge my faith. I'm going to die as a Muslim. I'll never drink alcohol. I'll never eat pork. Nobody. Always pray. And they become arrogant. And actually, the narrations talk about this. This is one of the dangers that Shaitan is trying to make you very comfortable. They say, no, I can go. Again, we said it's like a thorn. You're going through a thorny bush or a thorny road with bushes that are a road that has thorny bushes. If you keep going to the left, to the right, you'll be hurt. You'll be cut up. Some are ulama, are scholars in the holy city of Qom, not America, would pray and beseech the 14 infallible and say, Allah, I'm going to leave the house as a mu'min. Bring me back as a mu'min. Bring me back as a mu'min. Imam Ali alayhi salam, we don't have from the top of the believers, from the best of people that are ever created, is Rasulullah as the Prophet and Imam Ali. Imam Ali alayhi salam in the khutbah and sermon of the Prophet in Sha'ban, when the Prophet begins to cry and he mentions that, that you will be killed in the month of Shahr Ramadan, Imam Ali doesn't ask, how will I be killed? What's going to happen to me? He actually has this very interesting question that it relates to us. Ya Rasulullah, وَذَلِكَ فِي سَلَامَةٍ مِّن دِينِي. O Messenger of Allah, will my faith be intact? This is the question of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Will my faith be intact? Was Imam Ali alayhi salam in a way that he was so comfortable, says, oh, for sure, I'll be the best of believers. Okay, that's it, I'll be done. He says, what about my deen? What about my religion? If Imam Ali alayhi salam asks Rasulullah about his deen, should we worry about our deen before we die? Because Rasulullah is telling him, you're going to die. That is when you're going to be shaheed. And he's asking about my religion. Now some have this question, I thought the Imams were infallible. Why would Imam Ali ask such a question? Imams are infallible, they don't do sin. Does infallibility of prophets and Imam mean that Allah has structured them a way that it is impossible for them to sin? That there is no sin in them? No. There's no temptation in them, for example. There's no free will in them? No, that's wrong. The Imams have free will. The Imams can choose between right and wrong. And what gives them such a noble position and status is that every time the Imams, if it came to sin or making the wrong decision, every time they made the right decision. They never sinned. That's why they have such a high status. Not that they're engineered or designed, unable to sin. It means that they have the potential, but Allah has given them knowledge. Allah has given them so much willpower that they see sin as doing the most despicable of actions. They won't even think of it, for example, of sinning. They won't even think of it. We see throughout the Quran is a book to wake us up. As some of the scholars say, Allah gives stories. In the Quran, our mothers give us stories to put us to sleep. Allah gives us stories in the Quran to wake us up. I speak on the minbar for some to fall asleep maybe right now. Some are falling asleep and waiting to see what's happening with the food, for example. I make you hungry and I make you sleepy, for example. So therefore, we see the story of someone in the Quran, and it's a very interesting story because Allah shares these stories for a purpose. In chapter 7, 175 of Holy Quran, 176, it's a story of a person that became very spiritual, very high. They call him Bal'am Ba'ura. He became one that Quran says he was given وَلَوْ شِئْنَا لَرَفَعْنَاهَا بِهَا. Okay, Quran says, وَاتْلُ عَلَيْهِمْ, recite to them, tell them, Rasulullah, give them the story of الَّذِي آتَيْنَاهُ آيَاتِنَا. Tell them of the one who we've given him our signs. We've given him of our ayat. What was this scholar or this worshipper given? Some say he was given al-ism al-a'zam. He was given the great name of Allah. He became mustajabu da'wah. Whatever he prayed for, it happened right away. Whatever he prayed for happened right away. Quran says a person who was given of ayatina, that's one position he had. Then what brought him down was وَلَكِنَّهُ أَخْلَدَ إِلَى الْأَرْضِ. He was adhered to the earth, وَاتَّبَعَ هَوَاهُ, and he followed his desires, the nafs, the lower desires, destroyed him. He got such a high position from the ayat of Allah, and now he followed the lower desires. He either became arrogant, He followed whatever his nafs wanted, which is a monster inside us. What the narrations mention that it is, the biggest of your enemy is the one between your two soldiers. So therefore, you see, then Allah mentions and gives him an example, is that of a dog. فَمَثَلُهُ كَمَثَلِ الْكَلْبِ. He was given ayat first in ayah 175, then ayah 176. His example is the example of a dog. So you see, doesn't mean if right now you had, for example, maybe you do, I don't know, tell me if you do. If you had Ismul A'zam, for example, knew one of the great names of Allah. Some say it's a name, some say it's a position, some say it's a name and position, whatever. They say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim is one of the closest to Ismul A'zam, for example. So therefore, if you had this name, how, probably confidence that you'd have that you wouldn't go to hell. So I have Ismul A'zam. Everything I do, it's happening. And then he gets turned into mathalahu kamathalil kalb, like a dog. So therefore, we have to be very careful that are we going to have a good end, husn al-aqaba? So therefore, if you ask me, what is our duty during the end of times? What is our most important duty is this. The person he's actually a scholar himself, great scholar. He saw 3 major scholars in the shrine of Imam Rida's shrine, the 8th Imam. He was there. He saw 3 great ulama, for example, Ayatollah Falsafi, Ayatollah Murwa'i, different others. And he asked all 3 of them individually, not collectively. Individually, he went and asked all of them. He says, I am in the shrine. They're obviously in the shrine. He says, what should I pray for? What should I pray for? All 3 of them. All 3 of them gave the same answer, the scholar says. All 3 of them gave the same answer. He then went to Qum, as Ayatollah al-Uzma Golpaigani, one of the big scholars in Qum. Same thing, 4th, same answer. What should I pray for? What should I pray for? What should I pray for? What do you think it is? Husnul aqiba, good end. Or Farsi say aqibat bikhair. Having a good end to your life. Having a good end. The traditions have that we're going to talk about what causes us to have a good end to our life. Let me explain to you what a good end is in life. A good end of life is this. I'm going to give you another scholarly story. Whoever wants to hear it, please recite salawat. These ulama I have to introduce a little bit and then I'll tell their story. Ayatollah Sayyid Ahmad Khansari, it is known that they say he was an orphan and that he becomes one of the great mujtahideen. And there was a time where people recommended him after Ayatollah Burujerdi, the main scholar of the Shias, and 80 years ago, 70 years ago, they wanted him to be the main, to fulfill the position of Ayatollah Burujerdi, who everyone followed. He was because he lived in the city of Tehran, actually they came to Ayatollah Burujerdi, the merchants of Tehran, and said, give us a scholar. And Ayatollah Burujerdi came and sent Ayatollah Sayyid Ahmad Khansari, a mujtahid marja. Remember, if you want a scholar, go to the maraj and ask him, we want somebody, see if they'll send you someone, inshallah. So therefore, this person, we know a lot of his stories because he lived in Tehran, and I studied in Tehran for the first 6 years of Hawza before going to Qom. I studied with our teacher, Sheikh Ahmad Mujtahidi, whose seminary was in Tehran, and who he used to, because Ayatollah Khansari passed away then, he used to take the talabas, the new scholars, to put on their turbans, their ammama. He would take them to Ayatollah Sayyid Ahmad Khansari to put the turban on, because that person who puts it on should be someone important. He would put the turbans on. And he would say that Sayyid Ahmad Khansari wouldn't talk. He wouldn't speak. People would try to make him talk, except for teaching. Try to make him talk. How are you? What's going on? For example, how's the weather? All this. He said like 15, 20, 30 minutes to talk to him one way. He would just say, bale, bale. He wouldn't talk on purpose. He would have samt. Some of the mystics and samt, he wouldn't talk much. Opposite of the culture that we have, our culture usually is the more you talk, the more you know. And our culture a lot of times is the more you're quiet, the more you know actually, because you're more humble and you don't necessarily want to show off. They say also from the forbearance he had a wife that would bother him a lot, a wife that would actually abuse him a lot. And some of the greats would tell me, the great sons, they would say that once we were there and he went upstairs and went to the wife's room, and we heard a scream, a yell, and Ayatollah Khansari came back, his head got hit by his wife, his head was bloody. It got hit, came down, for example. And she would come, in front of his durus and classes and say, don't go to his classes. He's a hypocrite. Do not go to his classes. She was probably had a mental issue. So they came to him and said, you're a great mujtahid, divorce her, get rid of her. Get rid of her. She hits him, she calls him a hypocrite. He would say, where will she go? If I divorce her, where will she go? So he had patience. And once I said this in a center, they told me this scholar is saying to stay in abusive relationships. We're against what he's teaching, I'm saying, if you're not saying that, if there's abusive relationships, leave if you want. But if you're Ayatollah Khansari, stay. He had patience, he stayed, and he was abused and stayed. Just to give you a little bit of what he would do, I have a lot of other stories about him. Anyways, another statement I'm going to say, and then I'll say this story about him. They came to him, and because he had a different political view at the beginning of the Iranian Revolution, he had a different view. He had his own view. And for different reasons, they came to Imam Khomeini at that time, and Imam Khomeini respected him a lot from many years ago. And they say, can we pray behind Ayatollah Khansari? Can we pray behind him? Is he adil? Is he just? And then Imam Khomeini said that you ask if he's adil, if he's just. I ask myself, is he ma'soom? Is he infallible or not? Did he ever sin or not? This is the position. So anyways, death is approaching Ayatollah Sayyid Ahmad Khansari. I'm talking about it. This is how you act and behave to have a good end to your life. They say at that time, he tells his son, that son, tomorrow I'm going to die. He says, tomorrow I'm going to die. And his son is like, Dad, there's nothing wrong with you. He's old. There's nothing wrong with you. You're healthy. How are you going to die? And he says, do you have to be unhealthy to meet Allah? Do you have to be unhealthy to meet Allah? So at that day, he begins reciting, and you can take notes. If anyone is feeling not good or something, take notes. Suratul Mu'minun, he's right, recites Suratul Mu'minun. Has a lot of effect. He starts reciting Suratul Mu'minun, this chapter 4. Then he starts saying, and people wonder at that time, what do you do? A lot of the traditions say, go to that place you used to do salat, go to that room that you have salat, go there, you'll feel better. He started reciting, La ilaha illallah, there's no God but Allah. La ilaha illallah. There's a tradition that says, Man kana, if I believe I say right, akhira kalamihi la ilaha illallah, dakhala al-jannah. Whoever's last word is La ilaha illallah, there is no God but Allah, enters heaven. So he did this how many times? 12,000. 12,000 times La ilaha illallah. And it is said that he did one for each Imam. 1,000 for Imam Ali, 1,000 for Imam Hassan, 1,000 for Imam Hussein, all the way to Imam Mahdi. And they say right when he finished 12,000 La ilaha illallah, Allah took his soul away. After he finished 12,000 La ilaha illallah, Allah took his soul away. Beautiful death. Beautiful death because he was a beautiful person. Because he worked so hard on himself. He worshipped Allah truly. So therefore, we have people that have a death like this. He even knows of it, is informed of it, and it's very beautiful and nice with the last thing that he says, La ilaha illallah. So what can we do, and what is our main responsibility during the end of times? What can we do to have a good end, to get into our own lives? 2 verses of Quran and 2 hadith I'm going to say. Quran actually is very interesting, and if you look at scale of wisdom, the Arabic version has this. If you look at the section, Husn al-Aqaba, and don't read it too much, this book, because then you'll figure where I get my speeches from and my research from, just read it a little bit. But this is from the Arabic version, so I assume you can't, the English didn't have this. So in this book, it talks about the verses for each title. For example, having a good end. It has verses of Quran first and hadith. The first verse that was brought is this verse. That what can I do to have a good end to my life? Quran says, وَأْمُرْ أَهْلَكَ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَاسْتَبِرْ عَلَيْهَا. Command, enjoin upon your family and people to be steadfast therein. We ask you not for provision, we provide for you. Quran says, and then وَالْعَاقِبَةُ لِلتَّقْوَى. And the best outcome is for those who are righteousness, those who have taqwa, those who did not sin, those who commanded, from the verse before, salat. Those who performed salat, commanded it, means also they performed it. So the first step from this verse is to have taqwa, not to sin. And from this, protecting our salat. Salat sometimes is difficult. We're at work, we're in the airplane, we're at a place people, you don't want them to watch you. But this is one of the signs. Now, interesting, they say, the age that Ayatollah Sayyid Ahmad Khan started, they say that he started praying. He was an orphan. He said he started praying at the age of 6 himself. The age of 6, he started doing his salat. That salat protects us. That salat builds us. That salat is mi'raj al-mu'min, builds you because you're speaking to Allah. That salat that counts, that you pay attention, you do wudu correctly, you do the ahkam correctly. That salat should take you to very high places. After 20, 30, 40, 50 years of salat, that salat should take you to very good places. The second, Quran says, وَالْعَاقِبَةُ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ in 2883 in Surah Al-Qasas. So therefore, the best outcome is for those who are righteous. Now I'm going to read 2 hadith tonight and we'll end it inshallah. Imam Ali alayhi salam is salawat for Imam Ali. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. If you want Allah to protect you from an evil final outcome, so Arabic is in aradta an yu'minaka Allahu su'al aqiba. You want not to have a bad end. Some people, their life they have a bad end. Some of the worst are the enemies of the family of the Prophet. Shimr, for example, was in the battlefield in Siffin fighting with Imam Ali, then kills Imam Hussein alayhi salam. We have Abdul Rahman ibn Muljam. Says, I loved Imam Ali alayhi salam, becomes the killer of Imam Ali. So we have many throughout that have a bad end. If you do not want to have a bad end, do these few things. We have this attitude. Then know that whatever good that comes is from Allah's grace. فَأَعْلَمْ أَنَّمَا تَأْتِيهِ مِنْ خَيْرٍ فَبِفَضْلِ اللَّهِ وَتَوْفِيقِهِ. Know whatever good comes your way, it is from fadlullah wa tawfiqah. It is Allah's divine blessing. This means you will not have a bad end. What does it mean if I think that everything is from me? It means that I'm arrogant. It means that I have caused everything. It means I have overlooked Allah. It means that worship has made me more prideful. Should worship make you more proud or should it make you more humble? Sometimes you see in our own lives, we do a few nights of Salatul Layl over and over, good, and then we start thinking maybe we're better. Maybe I should not come to Yasin anymore. Maybe I should go to another place, a higher place, for example, and move and go to Mecca and stay there and worship Allah. I'm too pious now, for example. So therefore, worship should never make you arrogant. If you want to have a good end to your life, it says everything that comes your way, your knowledge, your, for example, benefits, your blessings, everything that comes, this is from Allah. This is from Allah. Be appreciative. No, He gave it to you. I didn't do anything. He gave it to me. Then it says, the second part, and know that Allah has delayed it for you when it comes to bad, whatever bad happens. وَمَا تَأْتِيهِ مِنْ سُوءٍ. Whatever bad happens, that Allah has delayed it for you, and you have already been given respite for it. So be aware of Allah's clemency and pardon for you. So when you look at the other side about evil, that Allah has protected you from evil. Allah has given you muhla, time period, that Allah is merciful. The fact, do not think if you're having a good life, there's no, evil things coming to you all the time, that means you're a good person. Know that this is from the grace of Allah. Allah is waiting and giving me, and He's clement, He is Rahman ar-Rahim and forgiving. So therefore, this attitude causes me not to have a bad end. This is the last hadith we'll end from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. This hadith has three things to do. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, لبعض الناس إن أردت أن يختم بخير, if you want to have a good outcome to your life, do these things. One, observe the rights of Allah. Do not use His bounties to disobey Him. Allah gives you good money. Allah gives you a good time. Observe the rights of Allah. Use it in Allah's way. Don't use it in ways of disobedience. I talked about a hadith that the ni'mah and blessings are two ways, either Allah or Taghut. If you don't spend it in Allah's way, it will be spent for the way of Taghut. Two, do not allow the fact that Allah is clement with you to delude you into negligence. Do not allow the fact that Allah has been forgiving to cause you to be in ghafla. The third, and respect and honor everyone whom we praise or those who embrace our love. Be kind to the followers of Ali Muhammad. Be very kindful to them. Do not do dhulm. Be careful how you treat one another. Many people, their praying is good. The way they view Allah is good. But when it comes to believers, they mistreat them, especially when it comes to mu'mins. And this causes a person to have su'al aqibah, a bad end. May Allah, inshallah, give us a good end, inshallah, to our lives. The best of our actions be at the end of our lives, inshallah. Allah protect our iman, make us of the Muslimin, make us die Muslim. This is the prayers of the prophets. And inshallah, give us our family members who have passed away, forgive their sins, answer your prayers, give us shafa, and those that are sick, give them, inshallah, healing. And protect us from the Sufyani, and protect us from the enemies of Ali Muhammad, and allow us to see the advent of our Imam and be of his noble companions with a salawat ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad.